When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high piled books and charactery hold, like rich garners, the fully ripened grain. When I behold on the night starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of the hour, that I will never look upon thee more, never feel the fairy power of unreflecting love, then, upon the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame to nothingness do shrink. That is, of course, Keats's famous sonnet, When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be. This sonnet, like Bright Star, is a touchstone for Keats. If you ever feel confused about Keats, go to this poem. On the surface, the poem seems to be a lament for what the poet will not achieve before he dies. Ostensibly, the poem says, I don't want to die now because I have yet to achieve the poetic fame that I desire. I have yet to achieve the romance that I desire. But if we pay attention to the imagery and the syntax, the punctuation, we find something quite different. If we look at the first quatrain, we notice that the poet wishes that he could write high-piled books in charactery. But notice that he likens the books he will write to garners that hold grain. So the poems that he creates will be stored away, unseen. Even though they might nourish, they remain unrealized. Well, by the time we get to the second quatrain, we see the poet imagining romances that he might write. But these romances, note, are about clouds, and they are written with magic, and the magic is associated with chance. So these poems are far from substantial. They are wispy, they are abstract, they are random. So it appears that to aspire to this kind of poetic fame might be misguided from the beginning. Well, the third quatrain seems to lament the fact that the poet has yet to achieve romance. However, yet again, look at the imagery. The fair creature that the poet yearns for romantically exists only an hour. It's totally evanescent, lubricious, transient. And notice that love is associated with fairy power, something unreal, rather childish, fantastic, and it is unreflecting. It seems that love is associated here with reverie, childishness, the ungraspable. So why would one aspire to that kind of love? Maybe that too is misguided. Now, these first three quatrains are one whole clause. When this, when this, when this. And then finally, the second clause comes in only in the last two lines, where we suddenly hear the poet say, then, if I do not do these things, what will happen? I will stand upon the shore of the wide world. Was that such a bad thing? Because certainly to be on a shore suggests what? It suggests possibility. It suggests an ocean is ahead of one. It suggests one is on a boundary, a threshold. And who knows what will come next? Well, also, the poet is thinking. I stand upon the shore of the wide world and think. Love, fairy power of romantic love, is unreflecting. It has nothing to do with thinking. The kind of poetry that the poet wants to write seems not to be associated with much deep thinking either. So there's a sense that the poem is ultimately a dramatization of a poet coming to realize that he does not want to aspire for traditional notions of poetic or romantic fame, but rather wants to stand upon the shore of the wide world and think about possibility, to think about the unknown. And what happens then? Love and fame to nothingness do sink. They go away. And what is left? Nothingness. But nothingness that is not void, but nothingness that is plenitude, pure possibility, not one thing or another, but all things. So here is Keats pushing against traditional ideas of what poetry is, what love is, and ultimately saying that the proper vocation for the poet is to think and to think about ambiguity, possibility, nuance, and ultimately to be willing to extend into the abyss of potential.